Hey everyone, William Cutting 08. Now I bet a lot of viewers out there recognize this knife right off the bat, and for those of you who don't know the name of this knife, this is the Spyderco Endura 4. Now this is probably my favorite EDC blade, and I do understand that it has a relatively larger blade size, but I tend to prefer the larger blades for my EDC tasks. And that's just my preference. It may be a little different for you. But I remember whenever there was a time when I first started getting into knives, and this is probably one of my first knife that I bought. Now, it's a little Kershaw knife. I don't know the name, but I got this from Walmart. And I didn't really know too much about knives. I just went in and I was like, well, I need a knife, so I got this one. And as you can see, it's really small. And I didn't ever really think I would need a knife bigger than this, because whenever I first started going to Knives Plus, I tended to stay in the same blade size area for my knives. And as the years went on, I started increasing in blade size. And there was a point where they showed me this knife, and I was like, oh, that's too big, I wouldn't need it. And then I actually bought it and started using it and found out how useful this knife is. So, and then there's also the time where I feel that, you know, even though that this is a really good blade, I need a little bit more in my knife. And if you run into the same dilemma as I have, then you might want to consider checking out the ColdSteel Extra Large Voyager. Now, I got this knife for Christmas, and I have to say that this is my favorite knife right now. I mean, it is just so awesome. You get a really big blade, and a nicely designed handle, and a nice pocket clip, all in a low-weight package. And also, I take this knife to work, and I show all my buddies, and they're like, whoa, what would you need that knife for? And, you know, I may not need it as an EDC blade, but I do need it for certain tasks, maybe self-defensive tasks and or some larger utility tasks, like food prep. But, I mean, it is just awesome, and I like to call this knife my little pocket machete. That's what I tell everybody at work. And they're right, it is really big. And that's where I'm gonna begin. This knife is really big, and it has a really nicely designed handle. ColdSteel took some time into designing this handle, and why I say that is because this knife, even though it's really large, it's really easy to conceal in your pocket. And normally whenever this knife rests in your pocket, you just see this portion right here. And since the handle kind of tapers off towards the rear end of the knife, that when this knife sits in your pocket, it doesn't look like anything out of the ordinary. It just looks like a normal sized folder. And I really dig that. Also, they did an excellent job in the texture on the zytel handle. It gives you excellent grip on the knife. And the handle is long enough if if you're using this knife while you're wearing gloves, or if you're like me, you can almost two-hand this knife. I don't really see any need for two-handing the knife, but at least you know you can do it. Also, it has a very nice, very strong pocket clip, and if you can see there, the pocket clip kind of tends to angle down towards the zytel handle. And it does kind of get hard. That kind of makes it hard to put this knife into your pocket and get this clip to your pocket. And also, the pocket clip is so strong and the zytel scales are so rough that the pocket clip has a tendency to rip and put some wear and tear on your pants. So if you have this knife, and I recommend looking at nutnfacy's video because he shows you how to fix this area on the handle to where it won't rip your pants anymore. Another reason why I like this knife is because it has a really large blade, and it has a 5-inch blade that is clip style. It's hollow ground, and it's made from VG1 stainless steel. And I have to speak from experience that VG1 stainless steel is one of the better steels that I've encountered. I'm not saying it's the best one, I'm just saying it's a really good steel. It has really good edge retention. I've used this knife a whole bunch. I've hacked at things, and it's still razor sharp. The thumb stud is a little pointy, if you notice right there. So when this knife sits in your pocket, and if you have really loose pockets, then this knife tends to bounce around in your pocket. Therefore, the thumb stud will kind of stab you in your thigh, and it doesn't really hurt too much. It just kind of makes it uncomfortable, kind of as if you've sat down on some keys. It's that uncomfortable. The deployment's really good. Most of the weight is within the blade, so it's very easy to shake the blade out like this. And you can also shake the blade out like this, or you can just use the thumb stud. And one thing that I like about the thumb stud is that it's far enough from the handle to where you can get a pretty good purchase on it to deploy the blade. And it's kind of hard. This knife is so big, it's kind of hard for me to show you how well this knife deploys, because then I would be hitting the table and the camera, and I don't really want to do that. Also, since it's a clip style blade, it has very good penetration power and slicing capabilities, and it'll handle most utility tasks that you throw at it. Now, I don't recommend using this knife to open boxes simply because it's so large and it's a little awkward. So I'm strictly going to label this knife as a tactical / self-defensive knife. And since you get like a 5-inch blade and a really long handle, another thing that I like about this knife is that you can grip the knife towards the rear of the handle, giving you an extra 2 inches of reach. So we're talking about 7 inches of reach, which is what you want to have when you're placed in a defensive / tactical encounter. The lockup is really good. There's no movement in the blade side to side or up to down. It does feature a pinned construction, which prevents you from taking the knife apart for disassembly and maintenance if you get mud or crud or salt water in this knife. So overall, this knife is an excellent knife if you're looking for a larger size tactical, and if you're looking, I would recommend taking this knife if you're going overseas, or if you're an officer on duty. It's a very good backup blade and self-defensive blade. And for its reasonable cost and relatively large blade size, I don't really see too many tactical folders out there that give you the size and feel of a fixed blade knife in a folding knife. So there you have it. That's the ColdSteel Extra Large Voyager. And stay tuned, there's more to come. See y'all later.